And that's the misnomer. I think so many people are going around thinking this next job. Once I get to this next job, then I'll be good. Then I'll be set. And then you get in there and you're like, well, no, now I need more money. Oh, no, now I need a different role or a different boss or a different industry. There's always another thing to chase. And just the way that our brains are wired, they're not wired to sit sit still. They're wired to think. So there's always growth happening, and whether we like it or not, we should be kind of keeping our head on a swivel in a way, to be ready for whatever those next opportunities might be, right?
Right.
And so when you were in that 5-year period, what were just a handful of the different things that you did? What were the kinds of jobs that you took on?
I actually quit my substitute teaching role after 9 years, and that was bittersweet. But again, I had done that 9 years. I thought it was just time for me to grow. So I left that position and I took a job at a wealth management firm. And I worked there a short while, and then I was always kind of someone's assistant. I guess you could call it administrative assistant. I never really was the office manager, so to speak, but I always assisted someone in getting their foot out the door or their paperwork in place or whatever. So in that amount, and then I also worked, it was really kind of a fun job. I found it back in the day when you could find things in the newspaper. Believe it or not, that wasn't even all that long ago where you could find jobs in the paper. I found a job for a local startup. It was like a restore. It was called Reuse It Center, and they were looking for a volunteer coordinator. And so this was a startup. I mean, it was hit the ground running, and none of us knew what we were doing, but we went out, we created this warehouse filled with old things that people would come in and purchase. And I was the volunteer coordinator. So I had to find volunteers to work this restore or reuse it center.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much fun. I had so much fun. Sadly, that place closed. So I was there I think that was about a 9-month gig too. And then from there, trying to remember all the things that I did, but the foundation work was good. Oh, and then I worked for a nurse caseworker who did like workers' comp, and I did like forensic accounting work for her. So it was all these little odd jobs that, I figure if you're a teacher, you know how to spell, you know how to read, you know how to do math, and so it's amazing all the different things you can do for people. And this kind of limped me along until I found the position with Medical Society.
That's all. Yeah, it's almost like you build those core skills and you can leverage them in a number of. It's like what mix and match of the skills do you have that you can apply to different problems. I love that. And you mentioned that the job search, because you're in one now. You mentioned that the job search isn't that much different 15 years ago than it is today, but that we have newspapers versus LinkedIn. There's a whole new world of like ATS systems and online applications and personal brands and 100 different portals versus a newspaper clipping. Or, I'm actually very curious, how has the job search changed for you over the years? Because that's something that, I'll get pushback from people and they'll say, all this stuff that exists today, LinkedIn and Indeed and having a personal brand and a personal website and all these different things that I need to do for my career. All this stuff is unnecessary and ridiculous. And it used to be so easy to find jobs. All you had to do was walk into a business, hand them your resume, and you had a job that day. Someone actually said this to me. And I was like, I don't believe you. I was like, I don't believe that that's how easy it was. Because I have a feeling that you probably spent a lot of time calling phone numbers from a newspaper. So I'm curious, like, what has that, like, throughout your whole career, what has that experience been like for you?
Well, I will say that I think one of I never looked at it as an advantage, but maybe it is, because I've been in a job search for such a long period of time, throughout the last 2 decades. I've really been able to kind of keep up. I've had a LinkedIn profile for a long time already. While I was in the job search, my husband also has been in the hunt, and he's a consultant, and so consulting work was always changing, and he was always in a job hunt. So the two of us together, I mean, we should really write a book about all the experiences we've had with job searching. But so we've kind of kept up with things. But I will say, back in when I was graduating college, you literally would get a phone call from a friend saying, hey, that's how I got my first teaching job. It was like, we have this position opening at our school and we're in desperate need. Would you be willing to take the job? And I said, yes. And that was how I got that job, so I will say probably 30, 40 years ago, it really pretty much was, hand someone, you didn't even need a resume. If your family members or the people who knew you were a good quality person, you could probably get a job and they would train you on the spot. I had a couple jobs like that early on. I would say it's much more difficult now. The waiting period, the process of applying for something and not hearing back, and I would say it's probably a lot more difficult now to finally land something. I still think I look back on my career and the old-fashioned way always worked for me, that I was a known quantity and somebody offered something to me. And
I still think that's how it works for the majority of jobs today. I think they say, 80% of jobs are found through networking. And, the ways we network might be different, but I still think most people end up finding roles through friends or loose connections or family or different things like that. In addition to job boards, I tend to find job boards, especially for more entry level folks, tends to have like almost less than a 3% like response rate and things like that. But
yeah,
when it comes to staying on top of it, I love that you're sort of seeing the power of kind of a lifelong job search, right? Never really taking your finger off the pulse, even when things are going well. And that's something that I find fascinating too. That sort of consultative mindset to things. Is there anything that you feel like, staying on top of LinkedIn and different things like that, is there anything that you think you've done throughout your career that has set you up to really be able to be flexible?
I think, well, the reason that I'm even talking with you today is because I've listened to one of your webinars and heard the word hybrid professional. And I was like, oh my gosh, after all these years, I think I have a title.
I love that.
I just really thought I didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't have a niche. I'm not anything in particular. And I really think a lot of that has to do with I'm an educator. And so I educate first. I'm a facilitator. And because I started out in a classroom where I had no teacher's aides, I had nobody helping me. If I wanted to get it done, I had to do it myself. And so when I look at jobs, I think I have said, well, I can do that for you, or I can help you with that, and so I have seen myself and the agility piece. But that is oftentimes hard to sell, because in our career world that we live in now, everybody really is very title driven. And if you don't have a particular title, it's pretty hard to find your niche. And I think that's always been my difficulty, is I don't have a niche. I'm kind of a hybrid. So.
And quick shout out to Marty Constant for donning the phrase hybrid professional, and
I'm
also
telling you, that was just like so awesome to finally hear that, and to be acknowledged that is something that's worthwhile, and hopefully somebody will find it worthwhile.